Why don't we go out to California? We've got Clark. He, him is a theist and wants to talk about some epistemology, I think. So, hey, Clark, you're on with Secular Rarity and Richard Gilliver. How's it going?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Oh, pretty good, pretty good.
What do you want to talk to us about?
Yeah, I was wanting to talk about epistemology. I don't think that atheism can really, depending on how we interpret it, which is why I'm going to have to ask some clarifying questions, but you're going to need to appeal to some necessary conditions which can't be accounted for under like naturalism, physicalism, materialism, any of these sort of notions.
Why not? Why can't it be accounted for under naturalism? Why can't I say there's a necessary thing that's a natural thing? What's the problem with that, logically speaking?
Well, the problem is just that when we talk about knowledge, I take it to be justified true belief. If naturalism's true, then you're just going to be an agent that's an epistemic agent that's subjected to the laws of nature. You don't have any.
You're just an epistemic agent that's subjected to the will of God. So there's no difference. We're in the exact same boat. If under your system, you're saying that we need this necessary thing that is God to ground us, and I'm saying we need this necessary thing that's just nature itself, there's no difference. We're in the exact same boat.
No, we're not. But you didn't let me finish, so that's probably why I didn't understand. So the issue is that like when you affirm naturalism, yeah, it's irrational because you being subject to the laws of nature means that you don't have control over any of your mental states, your intentional states, your beliefs, your desires, etc., which is necessary for justification. So if you don't have any agency over your mental
that just doesn't follow.
That would follow if naturalism is true.
Clark,
no, it does.
Why don't you have control
over if naturalism is true?
Hang on, Clark, because you're making a lot of claims and you're just moving past them and you're just asserting them without giving us anything for them. Like, I don't have a problem talking about this concept that if we're just subjected to naturalism, somehow we don't have control over our, like world around us. I don't know that you even need control over the world around you or anything. Like, I don't see why that's important. But yeah, Richard, go ahead, ask your question real quick, and we'll give it back to Clark.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why, Clark, it's not possible under naturalism.
Yeah.
The reason it's not possible is because it contains a conjunction of two inconsistent propositions, which demonstrates the incoherency of the notion when we're talking about epistemology.
What are those propositions?
So that's what we qualify as being logically impossible. The proposition
we don't need any more explanation. Hang on, Clark. Clark. Hang on.
We don't need a gish gallop.
We're following with you. You said the reason that it doesn't work is because there are two propositions, contradictory, incoherence. Great. What are those? Just give us those.
Yeah, that we have justification and we don't have agency over our mental states. In order for us to have knowledge,
why don't we have? Right, stop.
Yeah. Hold up.
Clark. This is supposed to be a conversation.
Yeah, slow down.
So let's have a conversation. So why isn't it possible in naturalism to have agency over your mental states?
Yeah, let's start there and then we'll go to the justification.
Because your mental states are not supervening on the laws of nature. It's the other way around. The laws of nature are supervening on your mental states.
So are you saying that under your system, our mental nature is supervening on the natural laws of the world? And can you show that?
Well, it's not. I don't affirm that the natural laws of the world have anything to do with epistemology. What I'm arguing is that our mental states, the nature of our mental states, is supervening on the nature of justification.
Yeah.
Right, hang on. So
I'm not sure you totally heard the question, but
go
ahead.
I'm really, really interested in the natural world. Is I'm not sure how it's not got anything to do with epistemology, because from what we know of, the natural world is what we have. That's what we have. That's the things we can measure, the natural world. And I know you said you had a problem earlier with kind of that side of things, but we can go into that. But as far as we can measure, we've got the natural world. We don't have anything beyond that. So how does epistemology not be measured by the natural world when the natural world is all we have?
Yeah, I'm saying that the nature of justification, which is the crucial link to have a theory of knowledge, can't be accounted for under naturalism, and I'm an idealist. So the natural world, science, and these things, when we talk about measuring these things, it's not going to matter. Science is meaningless artwork. It's the useless movement of identity.
Neither myself nor secularity have mentioned science.
Yeah.
None of us have. Naturalism doesn't only encompass science. Now, it depends what kind of naturalism you're talking about, because there are different kinds of naturalism. Right. You seem to be just throwing naturalism out there as a just kind of a wide web to cover all.
Yeah.
But go on, secular.
Yeah, and just jumping off of that, Clark, honestly, like Richard and I are not here for some like gotcha or anything. Like I feel genuinely when I say I don't think the things that you're saying make a lot of sense right now. And the reason that I feel like that's the case, at least in part, is because Richard says something like, oh, okay, so you say we don't have justification. Well, cool. Why don't we have justification? And your explanation of that seems to be more in the lines of, well, you don't have justification. And that's not super clarifying for us. And so we're trying to understand why it is that you're saying this. And it sounded like a moment ago you were saying something along the lines, and it could be incorrect, but something along the lines of the reason that an atheist doesn't have justification has to do with mental state being supervened or not supervened. And so then I asked you if you could demonstrate that you have that in your understanding, and we never really got there. So let's try explaining a little bit instead of just asserting stuff, because Richard and I are happy to talk. Like it's not, I'm not particularly worried or anything. If you can prove to me that there's anything else going on than the natural world around us, like I'm deeply, deeply interested. So let's maybe take a step back and go to it. Make sure that the two propositions we've got are correct, that you say fundamentally destroy epistemology from an atheist level. It's no justification, right? And what was the other one? And we'll go through them one at a time.
That there is the supervenience of the natural laws over our mental states. But you did say something else earlier that I would like to clarify in your spiel there real quick, because
I appreciate that you would like to clarify that. You're the one who called in making claims, and we've been trying to clarify this whole time. So work with us and we'll work with you. Okay. Let's make sure we're on the same page, and we'll actually try to go through your claims instead of just getting them spouted off for 10 minutes. And then happy to answer questions, happy to clarify. Okay. So give us the two things, the two propositions that make all of everything that Richard and I think we know completely incoherent. Give us those two. We'll start on one of them and we'll go from there. Okay.
Yeah. So one of them would just be that there's a supervenience relation with regards to the natural laws, or the laws of nature supervening on the epistemic agent's mental states.
Cool. And the second one is?
One of the propositions.
And the second one? Go ahead and give it to us.
We'll
just go one by one. You said there were two.
That there is justification in our epistemology.
Cool. So let's do the supervenience of natural laws on the agent. Let's go for that one. Are you saying that you have a demonstration in your system of the opposite, therefore giving you that grounding? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, it depends to what you mean by grounding. I take a grounding relation.
No. Hang on. No. This is much easier. This is much easier than what you're making it right now, Clark. You're saying there's a specific bullet point that we have under our system that if that is the case, we fail. Therefore, you must have a demonstration on your system of the counter to that, because otherwise you would also fail. You would be in the same boat. So what is that? That's a pretty important thing. If you don't have that, that sounds like you're in the same boat as us.
Well, no, I'm demonstrating the incoherency of your position, being that there are two inconsistent propositions.
I get that, Clark, and I'm sorry to have to keep doing this, but I don't know why we're having difficulty here. I'm giving you that, bro. I just gave it to you. You're right. You've changed my mind. Oh gosh, look at all this proof you've provided. I'm incoherent. Oh, it's so sad. Help me. help me not be incoherent, Clark. Why don't you tell me what it is that you have that answers this particular problem that you're pointing out with my system? Otherwise, it kind of sounds like we're in the same boat. Richard, does that make sense? You following along with me?
Yeah, I'm following along fine. Yeah.
All right, Clark, what you got?
Yeah, just concede the point that naturalism is false, because that's what I do, and that's how I reconcile justification on my model.
And so the thing that you were supposed to present right there, you've given nothing, is what it looks like. So we can try this again, because it's really simple, honestly. It's like Richard comes up to me and he says, "Oh, that's a bad recipe, Elliot. That recipe doesn't work. You add too much flour." And I go, "Well, gosh, Richard, do you have a recipe?" And then he just pulls out the correct recipe, right? I'm granting to Richard that my recipe is messed up. It's wrong. It's terrible. It's never going to work. You got me. Oh, no. So.
And his recipe for deep fried Mars bars is really, really bad. I've got to tell you.
It is. That's a deep cut. That's a deep cut. But okay. So, Clark, I'm with you, man. My recipe is poor. It is crap. It is crap. Help me bake this delicious God and magic cake. What is your recipe? What is your answer to this problem that makes everything about me and my epistemology incoherent?
Yeah, it's easy. The answer is just accept idealism. But
Right.
that's it.
Because why? What's the reason that I should accept idealism? Just because?
Because it solves this issue. Because if idealism is true,
So
at least
by
the version of
default,
idealism that I'm arguing for-
I accept another position without any justification. But just because you present a problem with one particular way of thinking, I'm supposed to now just accept any other method that's presented to me? Is that what you're arguing for? I hope not.
No, you didn't. You didn't let me give you the reason for.
Okay, so
accepting idealism.
the
You
reason
cut
I
me
should
off.
accept idealism is
is because epistemology and ontology are going to be coupled together. So epistemic virtues are going to have ontological analogs, which is going to solve this issue of justification that you're redundantly trapping yourself into.
Richard, do you feel like that was a good answer to the question?
I feel like that answer was, I think this thing, therefore this thing.
Yeah.
That's exactly how that came across to me.
That's about what I was getting.
There's no explanation in there as to why naturalism isn't sufficient.
Right.
There's no explanation in there as to why idealism is sufficient.
Mhm.
There's no explanation. It's a case of saying, I think this because of
Right.
this. And it's very much, it strikes me, these kind of conversations strikes me very much the same kind of lines of people who talk about necessary beings. And they say, God is a necessary being.
Mhm.
Well, that's fine. It's a perfectly legitimate philosophical position to raise. But what about numbers? What about logic, the laws of logic? These are all in various stages in logic considered necessary beings.
Yeah.
So why is God the only necessary being and you're
Right.
discounting these other ones? Well, because God
Right.
is the answer we tend to get. And this is how I'm feeling. And this is why this call for me is so frustrating, Clark. And this is why both myself and Secular Rarity are trying to push you to give an actual explanation as to why you think these things are the case.
Yeah.
Because I could just simply say naturalism is true because I think naturalism is true. And then we'd have a tit for tat because that's all you're giving us. Now,
Right.
we're happy to talk to you, but we actually want the explanations as to why. We want the reasoning behind it rather than just the thought itself.
And Richard and I aren't complete idiots. I mean, I'd like 60% maybe. Do you think that's fair, Richard? Like 6? Okay. But, also this is something that I feel like happens a lot of times when we have these conversations, which is we purposefully try to make things more obfuscated than is necessary. And I just don't understand that. Like, if we have good evidence for stuff, just present it and just explain it on a very ground basic level. Like, what is the thing that makes you say idealism has to be true? over anything else, because it can't just be by default. It can't just be, well, this other system that I was using is wrong, therefore I'll just accept the next thing that comes across my desk, because then we just get into a place of believing all kinds of nonsensical things. So help us out, Clark, honestly. Like, Richard and I are here being completely genuine. I think you're being genuine too. But I think a lot of times these conversations are had at such a level that when we try to explain it to other people, we recognize that we may not have a super great grasp ourselves. So help us out. Explain it to us like we're five. What's the piece of evidence that just nudges that scale over onto the side of idealism for you? And let's talk about that.
Sorry, I didn't know if am I unmuted?
Yeah, you're good, man. Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, sorry about that. Sorry. Well, for me, it's in terms of methodology. So idealism, the specific notion of idealism that I'm bringing forth, is going to be able to reconcile epistemic normativity. And what I'm arguing is that your position, affirming naturalism, you'd be committed. What follows from that is that there is no epistemic normativity. And in virtue of that, then our mental states would therefore not be normative. And if our mental states are not normative, then how can you account for accordance relations between our mental states and the truth conditions of any true
Clark, I understand all of this.
I
understand all of this, and I'm not disagreeing with you on this. Like, I'm following along with you, man. I'm happy to play with all the toys you want to play with. The issue is where we're at still is you've just asserted the thing again. You've just told us, well, that this system that you're using is incorrect, and my system account for it. How the fuck does it do that? What is the evidence? What is the actual relation to reality? I appreciate the philosophical, back and forth, man. I'm happy to do the damn syllogisms, but at the end of the day, I think any of us that give a shit about philosophy for 5 freaking seconds, we understand that we can make a proper syllogism. That's not difficult. Like, that isn't something that's just mind-blowingly confusing. It just takes a very simple freaking equation. And so now we're at the point of going, hey, man, you've got a proper syllogism here. Don't see any of those incorrect constructions. Where's the freaking support for your premises? Where is the support?
If I can just,
I think that might be the issue that we're.
Hang on just a second, Clark. Go ahead, Richard.
I just want to kind of tack onto that, which might help actually clarify this for you as well. You've mentioned naturalism, but there are different kinds of naturalism. I don't know what kind of naturalism Elliot ascribes to, if any. Personally, I ascribe to methodological naturalism. And you've said that there is no methodology. And yet within methodological naturalism, there is methodology. That is, in fact, what it is based around. So I'd kind of like you to explain, regarding specifically the naturalism I ascribe to, why that cannot account for epistemology.
Oh, sorry, that was my bad that time, Clark. I've got you unmuted.
It's okay.
Go ahead.
So I never said that methodological naturalism isn't a form of methodology. What I'm saying is that the methodology of absolute idealism, the idealism I'm arguing for, is more virtuous, and it's at what point the theoretical virtues come in the methodology.
But you did say naturalism. Doesn't, Clark. You did say naturalism doesn't account for it, though, and that's specifically the question I'm asking you.
Yeah,
I'm specifically asking you.
It doesn't account for the epistemic norms.
Why?
Because under naturalism, there is no normativity. There is no epistemic normativity.
Under methodological naturalism, there is.
And I feel like where we're at, Clark, which, this isn't, I'm hopefully you're not taking anything we've said as being, mean or anything, but my suggestion would be, seriously, go back and really, really dig and get a hardcore long ass answer to this question. Like, way too long. Like, I'll put this out to you. Question: is white chocolate actually chocolate? The real answer will surprise you. Okay. Go learn that super long, complicated, difficult answer and mull it over a good couple of times, and then call us back and then give that to us like we're 5, because repeatedly I've heard Richard and I ask, great, We're following along with you on this train. The train is leaving the station of naturalism is wrong. It doesn't account for something. And the next station should be the explanation of how your system accounts for that stuff and answers that question. So that's something that's going to be really helpful for continuing this conversation, I think. But we do appreciate you calling in, Clark, because honestly, I think that was a great way to start. And seriously, we want you to call back. We want to hear more about this. We want to dive deeper into this, but it just feels to me like we're going in circles of saying, well, there's no epistemic normativity. Okay, well, why? Well, because it doesn't count for norms in an epistemic way. Well, yeah, I know that. That's what we just agreed to. That being said, I thought it was a good call, Richard. You like it?
I did like it. I enjoy those calls, and I like you got a little bit frustrated by that one simply just because they seem to be going nowhere.
Yeah.
They seem to be getting the kind of it is because it is answers
Yeah.
rather than it is because of
right
the explanation.